I just won $380 million in the state lottery, the biggest jackpot in our state's history. But instead of celebrating or telling anyone, I'm sitting alone in my modest apartment, staring at the winning ticket. I've decided to keep it secret and test my family first. I've always wondered if they truly love me or just tolerate me. Now I have the perfect opportunity to find out their true character by calling them pretending to be broke and desperate for help. My name is Elmer, and for the past 12 years, I've been the family disappointment. While my older brother Jake built a successful real estate empire, and my sister Sarah became a respected nurse practitioner, I've spent my days under car hoods at Murphy's Auto Repair, earning just enough to cover rent on my one-bedroom apartment. My parents never let me forget which path led to prosperity and which led to greasy fingernails and aching backs. The lottery ticket burned in my pocket as I dialed Jake's number. My hands trembled, not from excitement about the money, but from what I was about to discover about the people I'd spent my whole life trying to please. Jake speaking. His voice carried that professional tone he used with clients, even though caller ID showed my name. Hey, it's Elmer. Listen, I'm in a tough spot and could really use your help. I forced my voice to crack slightly, adding just enough desperation to sound convincing. What now? The warmth drained from his voice immediately. My car broke down completely. Engines shot, transmissions gone, the whole thing. I need about $800 for repairs, or I'll lose my job. Murphy said if I can't get to work reliably, he'll have to let me go. Silence stretched between us. I could hear Jake's expensive office chair creaking as he leaned back. $800, he repeated slowly. Elmer, I've got 3 properties closing this month, and you know how tight cash flow gets during these transactions. Besides, maybe this is a sign you should be looking at more reliable transportation options. I can't get reliable transportation without money, and I can't get money without the job. It's a catch-22. Have you considered a loan? Banks offer personal loans for situations like this. With my credit. Come on, Jake, you know better. Another pause. Look, I want to help, but I've got to be smart about my finances. Have you talked to Sarah or Mom and Dad? The dismissal stung worse than I'd expected. My brother, who just bought his 4th rental property, was lecturing me about being smart with finances while I begged for enough money to keep working. I thought maybe family could help before I explored other options. We are helping. I'm giving you advice. Sometimes the best help isn't money, it's guidance. I hung up and immediately dialed Sarah's number. Elmer, what's wrong? At least she sounded concerned. My landlord's threatening eviction. I'm $300 short on rent, and if I don't have it by tomorrow, I'll be on the street. How did you let it get this bad? The concern vanished, replaced by that familiar lecturing tone. We've talked about budgeting, about planning ahead. I had to choose between rent and car repairs. Without the car, I can't work. So you chose the car, and now you can't pay rent. Elmer, this is exactly the kind of poor decision-making that keeps you in these situations. My chest tightened. I just need help this one time. It's never just one time with you. 3 months ago, you needed help with your electric bill. Before that, it was your phone. I'm tired of your problems becoming my problems. I'm your brother. And I love you, but love doesn't mean enabling bad financial habits. You need to learn to stand on your own feet. Sarah, I'll literally be homeless. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you spent money you didn't have. I'm sorry, but I can't keep rescuing you from consequences of your own choices. The line went dead. My sister, who made twice my yearly salary in 6 months, had just told me to figure out homelessness on my own. With shaking fingers, I called my parents. Hi, sweetheart. Mom's voice was warm until I explained my situation. Just $150 until payday, I pleaded. I need groceries. I haven't eaten anything substantial in 2 days. Elmer, Robert Thompson. Dad's voice came through the speaker, stern and disappointed. At 32 years old, you should not be calling your retired parents begging for grocery money. I know. But I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. Desperate because you don't plan, Mom chimed in. Your father and I worked hard our whole lives, saved every penny, so we could retire comfortably. We can't keep dipping into our fixed income because you refuse to budget properly. We'll give you $50, Dad said finally. But this is absolutely the last time. And you'll pay us back within 2 weeks, with $10 interest for the inconvenience. $10 interest. From my own parents, for emergency grocery money. Thank you, I whispered, though the words tasted bitter. And Elmer. Mom added, we think it's time you considered getting a second job. Maybe something in the evenings. Lots of places need night shift workers. After they hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at my phone. $50 from my parents with interest. Nothing from my successful siblings. The winning lottery ticket seemed to mock me from the counter. But I wasn't finished. I had one more call to make. My cousin Marcus had started a tech company 5 years ago and sold it for $12 million. He now owned 3 businesses and lived in a mansion with a 4-car garage. We'd grown up together, practically brothers. Elmer, buddy. His voice boomed through the phone. How's life treating you? Not great, actually. I hate to ask, but I'm in real trouble. I lost my job, got evicted, and I'm sleeping in my car. I need help getting back on my feet. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. Maybe being homeless will finally teach you some responsibility. Sometimes people need to hit rock bottom before they learn to climb. My dad always said adversity builds character. I couldn't speak. My cousin, my childhood friend, who used to share his lunch money with me in elementary school, was suggesting I needed to suffer more. Look, I'm not trying to be harsh, but I've learned you can't save people from themselves. Maybe this will be the motivation you need to finally get serious about life. Marcus, I just need temporary help. And I just gave you the most valuable help possible. Perspective. You'll thank me when you're successful. He hung up, leaving me alone with the most shocking realization of my life. My family didn't just refuse to help me in my darkest hour. They were actually pleased about it, believing my suffering would somehow improve my character. The lottery ticket crinkled as I picked it up. $380 million. More money than my entire family had combined. And they'd just shown me exactly what they thought I was worth. Nothing. 3 days passed before I made the second round of calls. 3 days of documenting my family's coldness, while sitting on a fortune that could solve every problem they'd ever dreamed of having. I needed to see how deep their cruelty ran when my desperation increased. I called Jake first, letting my voice crack with exhaustion. Jake, it's me again. I got evicted. I've been sleeping in my car for 2 nights now, and it's getting cold. Really cold. Jesus, Elmer. Didn't you figure something out? I tried everything. Talked to my landlord, asked for extensions, looked for other places. Nobody will rent to someone unemployed. Well, what do you want me to do about it? The bluntness hit me like a physical blow. Maybe I could stay on your couch for a few days while I figure things out. My couch. Jake's laugh held no humor. Elmer, I've got a reputation to maintain. I host clients at my house regularly. How would it look if my homeless brother was camping out in my living room? I'm your brother, not some stranger. Exactly. Which is why I'm being honest, instead of polite. You need to figure this out yourself. I can't enable this behavior anymore. Behavior, Jake, I lost my job and my apartment. Because you didn't plan ahead, didn't save money, didn't develop marketable skills. These aren't random tragedies, Elmer. These are natural consequences of poor life choices. So you're just going to let me sleep in my car? I'm going to let you face reality. Maybe when you're uncomfortable enough, you'll finally do what it takes to change. The line went silent. My brother had essentially told me that my suffering was beneficial, even necessary. I called Sarah next. I'm still sleeping in my car, I said without preamble. It's been 3 nights. I'm hungry, I'm cold, and I don't know what to do. Elmer, I've been talking to David about this. David was her husband, a successful accountant. We think you need professional help. Financial counseling, maybe even therapy to address whatever underlying issues keep creating these patterns. I need shelter, Sarah, not therapy. See, that's exactly the problem. You're focused on immediate relief instead of long-term solutions. David says this is classic avoidance behavior. David doesn't even know me. He knows enough. Look, I've done research on enabling versus helping. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to rescue someone from their own consequences. Consequences of what being poor? Consequences of choices. You chose not to pursue education after high school. You chose to work at a job with no advancement opportunities. You chose not to save money or develop emergency funds. I chose those things because they were my only options. There are always options, Elmer. You just chose the easy ones, and now you're facing the results. I hung up and called my parents. Mom, I'm sleeping in my car. It's 43 degrees at night and I don't have warm enough blankets. Oh, sweetie. Mom's voice carried sympathy, but Dad cut her off. Linda, don't. We talked about this. Talked about what? I asked. Your mother and I agreed that we've been too soft on you over the years. Every time we bail you out, we prevent you from learning to be self-sufficient. I am self-sufficient. I worked full-time until my car broke down. Self-sufficient people have savings for emergencies. Self-sufficient people don't call their parents in crisis every few months. Every few months? The electric bill in August, Mom said quietly. Your phone bill in June. Car registration in March. I'd forgotten about those smaller requests. To me, they were rare, desperate moments. To them, I was a constant drain. We love you, son, Dad continued, but we've decided to practice tough love. You need to solve this yourself. Where am I supposed to sleep? There are shelters, churches that help, government programs. You're a healthy adult male. You'll figure it out. After they hung up, I sat in my car outside a 24-hour diner, watching families through the warm-lit windows. Parents helping children with homework. Couples sharing dessert. Normal people living normal lives, while my own family calculated how much suffering I needed to become worthy of their help. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. I've discussed your situation with my book club. Several members mentioned that their church has a food pantry on Wednesdays. Might be worth looking into. She discussed my homelessness with her book club. Strangers were now debating my personal failures over wine and literary analysis. Another text, this one from Jake. Talk to Tom Patterson from the Rotary Club. He knows someone who runs a halfway house for people getting back on their feet. Want me to get his number? My successful siblings were networking my poverty, turning my crisis into conversation pieces for their social circles. A third text came from Marcus. Heard through the family grapevine about your situation. Still think this might be exactly what you need. Character building, buddy. Stick with it. The family grapevine. They'd been discussing me, analyzing my situation, reaching consensus about my need for continued suffering. My misery had become their group project. But I wasn't done testing them. Not yet. I needed to see how far their coldness could stretch, how much cruelty they could justify in the name of helping me grow. Because sitting in that cold car, with $380 million in my pocket, I was beginning to understand something that changed everything. My family wasn't struggling to help me. They were choosing not to. And they weren't ashamed of that choice. They were proud of it. 2 more days in the car had taught me exactly how creativity flows when desperation demands it. My back ached from sleeping across the front seats. My stomach cramped from hunger, and my phone battery was nearly dead. Perfect conditions for the ultimate test of family loyalty. I drove to the emergency room at Regional Medical Center and called Jake from the parking lot. Jake, I'm at the hospital, I said, letting genuine exhaustion color my voice. What happened? I collapsed, right there on the sidewalk outside the grocery store. They think it's from not eating enough and sleeping in the cold. The doctor says I'm dehydrated and malnourished. Jesus, Elmer. They're discharging me in an hour, but I have no money for a cab and nowhere to go. I can barely walk. Could you please just pick me up? Silence stretched so long I wondered if the call had dropped. Pick you up and take you where? I don't know. Maybe your place just until I can figure something out. I'm not asking for money, just somewhere warm to recover. Elmer, I've got 3 showings this afternoon and a dinner meeting with investors tonight. This is a really bad time. I collapsed from hunger, Jake. And that's terrible. But me disrupting my entire business schedule won't change what happened. Have you called an Uber? With what money? They have payment plans. Or maybe the hospital has some kind of transport service for indigent patients. Indigent patients. My brother had just categorized me as an indigent patient. Can't you just help me this once? I am helping you. I'm refusing to enable the dependency that got you into the situation. Sometimes being helpful means being strong enough to say no. He hung up while I sat in the hospital parking lot, not believing what I'd just heard. I called Sarah next. Oh my God, are you okay? She sounded genuinely alarmed. I'm alive, but barely. The doctor says if I'd waited another day or two, I might have had serious organ damage from malnutrition. This has gone too far, Elmer. You can't keep living like this. I know. That's why I need help. Just temporary help until I can get back on my feet. What kind of help? Somewhere to recover. I'm too weak to sleep in the car anymore. Maybe your couch for a few nights. Another pause. Elmer, David, and I have been talking. We think you might be being dramatic about your situation to manipulate us into helping. Dramatic? Hospitals don't discharge patients who are genuinely unsafe. If you were really as bad off as you claim, they'd keep you for observation or connect you with social services. They did connect me with social services. The waiting list for emergency housing is 6 weeks long. Then maybe that's what you need to do. Wait your turn like everyone else, instead of expecting special treatment because you're family. Special treatment, Sarah, I'm asking for basic human compassion. And I'm giving it to you by not enabling your self-destructive patterns. Real compassion sometimes requires tough choices. She hung up, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. My sister, a medical professional who'd taken an oath to help people, had just suggested I was lying about a hospital visit to manipulate her. I called my parents. We heard from Jake and Sarah, Dad said before I could speak. They told us about the hospital. Then you know I need help. We know you claim to have been hospitalized, Mom corrected. But honestly, sweetheart, this feels like escalation. First you needed money for car repairs, then for rent, then for food, and now you're in the hospital. It feels like each story gets more dramatic. You think I'm lying? We think you might be exaggerating to make us feel guilty, Dad said. It's a common pattern in people who haven't learned to solve their own problems. I can show you the discharge papers. Discharge papers can be faked, son. Or you might have gone to the emergency room for something minor and decided to spin it into something more serious. You're my parents. Which is exactly why we can't keep rescuing you. Good parents teach independence, not dependence. Good parents also don't let their children sleep on the street when they're sick. Our children don't sleep on the street because our children learn to be responsible adults. They hung up, leaving me alone in the hospital parking lot, with the crushing realization that my family had just accused me of faking a medical emergency to manipulate them. But the worst was yet to come. My phone rang 20 minutes later. Marcus. Dude, I heard about the hospital thing. Look, I've been thinking about your situation. Finally, I thought, someone was going to help. I'm willing to offer you a job. Manual labor at one of my construction sites. Minimum wage cash daily. But only if you're serious about working for it. Marcus, I just got out of the hospital. Perfect timing then. Fresh start, clean slate. No more handouts, no more excuses. Just honest work for honest pay. I'm barely strong enough to stand. Then you'll get stronger. Physical labor builds character and muscle at the same time. I need somewhere to stay while I recover. There's a room above the site office. Nothing fancy, but it's got a cot and a space heater. You can stay there in exchange for keeping an eye on the equipment at night. It was exploitation disguised as generosity. My wealthy cousin was offering me minimum wage labor and a storage room in exchange for 24-hour security work. So you'll help me, but only if I work for everything I get? Exactly. No more free rides, no more family bailouts. Time to earn your way like everyone else. Even though you know I'm sick and homeless. Especially because of that. This is your chance to build something real, instead of just surviving crisis to crisis. Marcus hung up, apparently pleased with his generous offer to let me work myself to health, while providing him with cheap labor and free security. I sat in that parking lot for another hour, processing what had just happened. My family had not only refused to help me during a medical emergency, they'd accused me of lying about it, suggested I was manipulating them, and offered exploitation as their version of assistance. The lottery ticket felt heavier in my pocket. $380 million. More money than any of them would see in 10 lifetimes. And they'd just shown me that they thought I was worth less than the cost of a hotel room for one night. But I'd learned what I needed to know about their character. Now it was time to see how low they'd actually go when they thought no one was watching. I accepted Marcus's job offer, which meant waking up at 5:30 every morning to move concrete blocks, dig drainage ditches, and clean construction debris for $8 per hour. The room above the site office had thin walls, a broken window that let in the October cold, and a cot with springs that dug into my back all night. But it gave me the perfect vantage point to observe my family's true character. On my third day of work during the lunch break, I overheard Marcus talking to the other guys, while I sat nearby eating a gas station sandwich. "Yeah, my cousin's finally learning what real work feels like," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Been letting the family carry him for years, but sometimes you gotta cut people off so they learn to swim on their own." Tommy, one of the electricians, asked, "Isn't he the one staying upstairs?" "Perfect arrangement. I get night security for free, and he gets a roof over his head. Plus, he's working for what he gets instead of just taking handouts. Win-win." Marcus was bragging to the crew about getting free security services while paying me below market wages for dangerous work. He genuinely believed he was doing me a favor by exploiting my desperation. The revelation got worse when my phone rang during break. "Jake. Hey, I've been thinking about your situation. I might have a solution." "Yeah. I'm going on a 2-week vacation to Europe. Business trip combined with pleasure. Anyway, I need someone to house sit my place while I'm gone. Keep an eye on things, water the plants, that kind of stuff." "That's really generous, Jake." "Well, it would give you a roof over your head and I'd feel better knowing the house isn't empty. There is some yard work that needs doing while I'm gone. The gutters need cleaning, the deck needs power washing, and the fence needs a fresh coat of stain." "How much yard work?" "Nothing you couldn't handle in your spare time. Think of it as earning your keep." Spare time. He expected me to work construction all day, then spend my evenings and weekends doing maintenance on his mansion in exchange for temporary housing. "Jake, I'm working 10-hour days in construction." "Perfect. Physical work builds character. Plus, this way you're contributing something instead of just taking up space. Taking up space in your empty house that you weren't using anyway." "Exactly. See how much more meaningful it feels when you're earning it." The twisted logic was breathtaking. Jake wanted me to pay for the privilege of protecting his empty house by doing hundreds of dollars worth of manual labor for free. "What about food while I'm house sitting?" "There's a grocery store 2 miles away. Perfectly walkable distance." "With what money?" "From your construction job, obviously. It's time you started budgeting properly." Jake hung up, apparently satisfied that he'd solved my problems through generous exploitation. 2 hours later, Sarah called. "I've been feeling bad about how I handled things before," she said, which briefly raised my hopes. "David and I talked, and we think we might have been too harsh." "I appreciate that, Sarah. So we're willing to make you an offer. You can stay on our couch for a while, just until you get completely back on your feet." "Really?" "There would be some conditions, of course. We've got 3 kids and busy schedules, so We'd need help around the house. Nothing major, just assistance with cooking, cleaning, lawn care, that sort of thing. How much assistance? Well, since you'd be staying here for free, it would be fair for you to contribute labor instead of rent. Maybe take over the household chores, so David and I can focus on our careers. All the household chores? Just the basic stuff. Cooking dinner each night, cleaning the bathrooms, doing laundry, maintaining the yard. Plus, babysitting when we go out. It's really quite generous when you think about it. Sarah wanted a live-in maid and nanny in exchange for couch space. She was framing complete servitude as generosity. What about my construction job? You'd work around it, obviously. Early morning chores before work, evening chores after. Weekends for the bigger projects. Bigger projects. We've been putting off repainting the guest room and refinishing the deck. Perfect opportunity to take care of those while you're here. Sarah, you're asking me to work construction all day, then come home and work for you all evening and weekend. We're offering you free housing, Elmer. Do you know what rent costs these days? You'd be saving at least $1,200 per month. In exchange for being your unpaid household staff. In exchange for contributing to the family that's helping you. This is how healthy relationships work. She hung up before I could respond, leaving me stunned by her ability to frame exploitation as healthy relationship dynamics. But the worst call came from my parents that evening. We've been reconsidering our position, Dad said. Your mother feels bad about leaving you to fend for yourself. We love you, sweetheart, Mom added. We want to help. What did you have in mind? You can move back into your old room in the basement, Dad said. Just temporarily while you get established. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. My childhood bedroom, warm meals, family support. That's really generous. Well, there would be rent, of course, Dad continued. $200 per month plus utilities. We can't afford to support you for free on our fixed income. You want me to pay rent to live in your basement? It's below market rate, Mom pointed out. You'd never find anything that cheap elsewhere. Plus, since you'd be living here anyway, you could help with some of the maintenance projects we've been putting off, Dad added. The basement needs a complete renovation, the kitchen could use updating, and the roof needs some repair work. You want me to renovate the basement I'd be living in? Think of it as improving your own living space while learning valuable skills. Plus, there's yard work, gutter cleaning, general maintenance. Nothing you couldn't handle in your free time. They wanted me to pay them rent to live in an unfinished basement, then spend my free time renovating it for their benefit, while also maintaining their entire property. What about food? You'd buy your own groceries, of course, Mom said. We can't afford to feed an extra person. But you could cook in our kitchen, Dad added generously. Just clean up after yourself. I hung up and sat on the cot in my freezing storage room, processing what had just happened. Every single member of my family had called to offer me help, but each offer was designed to extract maximum labor while providing minimum assistance. They weren't helping me recover from homelessness. They were competing to see who could exploit my desperation most efficiently. Jake wanted a house sitter who'd perform hundreds of dollars worth of maintenance for free. Sarah wanted a live-in servant who'd pay her with labor instead of money. Marcus was already getting cheap labor and free security. My parents wanted a tenant who'd pay rent to renovate their property at his own expense. None of them saw anything wrong with these arrangements. In fact, they all seemed proud of their generosity in finding ways for me to work for the basic human needs they refused to provide freely. But the most shocking part was yet to come. Because as I lay on that thin mattress, listening to the October wind through the broken window, my phone lit up with a group text that would reveal just how coordinated their exploitation really was. The message was from Sarah to the whole family, but she'd accidentally included me in the group chat. Family meeting Sunday to discuss the Elmer situation. We need to coordinate our approach and set boundaries. He's been making separate requests to all of us, and we should present a united front about what we're willing to do and what we expect in return. A family meeting. About me. to coordinate their response to my homelessness and ensure they extracted maximum value from any assistance they provided. They were treating me like a business problem to be managed, not a family member to be helped. And they were planning to do it together in secret, while pretending each individual offer was spontaneous generosity. The lottery ticket in my wallet suddenly felt like the weapon it was about to become. The family meeting happened without me, but Marcus's big mouth ensured I learned every detail. He stopped by the construction site Monday morning, still chuckling about what he called Operation Tough Love. "Your whole family's on the same page now," he told me, while I loaded concrete blocks. "We spent 2 hours yesterday getting our strategy straight." Strategy for what? For helping you, without enabling you. Making sure you earn everything you get, and learn some responsibility in the process. "What did you decide?" "Well, Jake's house-sitting offer stands, but we increased the scope of work. You'll also need to paint his garage and clean out his storage shed. Sarah's willing to let you stay there, but she needs her whole basement organized and her attic cleaned out. Your parents are still offering the basement, but they want the kitchen remodeled and the whole upstairs painted before winter." Each family member had increased their demands after coordinating with the others. They'd calculated exactly how much labor they could extract from my desperation. And we all agreed on payment schedules. Jake wants his housework done before you can stay there. Sarah wants a week of evening work before you get couch access. Your parents want the basement renovation started before you can move in. Payment schedules. Can't have you thinking this stuff is free. We're all contributing to your recovery, and you need to contribute back. Marcus walked away pleased with the family's collaborative exploitation plan, while I stood among the concrete blocks, realizing they'd turned my homelessness into a bidding war for free labor. But the coordination went deeper than work assignments. That afternoon, Jake called. "I've been talking to the other guys about your situation. We think you've been playing us against each other, making everyone feel guilty, so you can get maximum help with minimum effort." "Playing you against each other?" "Calling each of us separately with slightly different stories, seeing who'll give you the most. It's manipulative, Elmer." "I called everyone because I needed help." "You called everyone because you were fishing for the best deal. Well, we're done being manipulated. We've coordinated our offers, and they're all fair but firm. No negotiation, no shopping around. Shopping around for basic human help from family? Shopping around for the easiest way to avoid personal responsibility. Those days are over." Jake hung up, apparently satisfied that they'd solved my manipulation problem by forming a cartel to control the help market. The situation got worse when I discovered what they'd been telling other people. During lunch break, one of the electricians approached me. "Hey, I heard your family's been real generous helping you get back on your feet. That's cool, man. Good to see family sticking together." "What do you mean?" "Your cousin was telling everyone how they're all pitching in, giving you work and places to stay. Said it's been hard on them financially, but family's family, you know." Marcus had been telling people they were supporting me financially. He was taking credit for generosity, while profiting from my labor. "Yeah, Tommy mentioned his church is taking up a collection for you. Something about helping a family in crisis." My blood turned cold. "What church?" "St. Matthew's, I think. Your cousin put in a word with the pastor about your situation. Said the family's doing what they can, but medical bills and job loss hit pretty hard." I called the church during my next break. "Oh, yes," the secretary said warmly. "We've been praying for the Thompson family. Your cousin explained how you've all been struggling since the medical emergency. The congregation has been very generous." "How generous?" "We've collected nearly $800 so far. Your cousin said he'd pick it up this weekend to help with your immediate needs." Marcus had told the church my family was financially supporting me, while we all struggled together. He was collecting charity money intended for my crisis, while paying me below minimum wage and housing me in a storage room. "Has anyone else from my family been in touch?" "Oh yes, your sister called yesterday. Such a sweet woman. She said the family's been taking turns providing housing and meals, but it's been a strain on everyone's budget. The ladies' auxiliary is organizing a meal train. Sarah had convinced the church to provide free meals for my fictional family crisis, while she was demanding I cook for her family in exchange for couch access. I called another number Tommy had mentioned. Community Crisis Fund. This is Jennifer. I'm calling about the Thompson family aid request. Oh, of course. We approved your emergency assistance this morning. Your father provided all the documentation about the job loss and medical expenses. $1,500 should help with immediate needs. My father, such a dignified man. You could tell he hated asking for help, but family comes first. He'll pick up the check Wednesday. My parents had applied for emergency aid, claiming they were supporting me financially while charging me rent to renovate their basement. What documentation did he provide? Hospital discharge papers, unemployment verification utility, shutoff notices. Very thorough. We see a lot of families in crisis, but it's rare to see everyone pulling together like yours is. Fake documentation. My family had created false evidence of their financial support while plotting to exploit my labor. I spent the rest of the workday in a haze of disbelief. My family hadn't just refused to help me. They'd turned my homelessness into a profit center, collecting charity money by pretending to support me while designing increasingly exploitative work arrangements. But the final revelation came when I overheard Marcus on a phone call after work. Yeah, the church thing worked perfectly. $800 for telling them we're helping family. Plus, the community fund came through with $1,500. That's already covered his wages for 3 weeks, and he's been working for free nights and weekends. He paused, listening. No, he has no idea. Thinks we're all just being tough love family. Meanwhile, we're getting paid to let him work for us. Another pause. Best part is, everyone thinks we're saints for helping family in crisis. Jake got 2 new clients from people impressed by his family values. Sarah's book club is talking about nominating her for the Community Service Award. And the parents are getting sympathy casseroles from half their church. My family wasn't just exploiting my labor. They were being praised and rewarded by the community for their generous support of me, while I slept in a freezing storage room and worked for wages that wouldn't cover basic survival. They'd turned my desperation into social capital, financial profit, and public recognition, while ensuring I remained desperate enough to continue providing cheap labor. The lottery ticket in my wallet felt like justice itself, as I realized I'd witnessed something far worse than simple selfishness. This was calculated, coordinated, systematic exploitation disguised as family love. And tomorrow they'd all call to check on my progress with their generous work offers, genuinely believing they were good people, teaching me valuable lessons about self-reliance. The time for testing was over. The time for revelation was about to begin. I spent 3 more days documenting everything using my phone to record conversations and screenshot text messages. I photographed the charity collection advertisements, saved voicemails, and built an undeniable record of my family's coordinated exploitation. On Friday evening, I called each family member with the same message I needed to see them all together, to thank them properly for their help, and share some important news about my future. It's really good news, I told Jake. Life-changing, actually. But I want to tell everyone at once. They agreed to meet Sunday afternoon at my parents' house. Each of them sounded pleased, probably imagining my gratitude for their tough love approach and my announcement that I'd finally learned to be responsible. Sunday arrived gray and cold. I drove to my childhood home in the beat-up Honda I'd been sleeping in for weeks, the lottery ticket safely tucked in my jacket pocket, alongside my phone with its accumulated evidence. Everyone was already there when I arrived. Jake sat in Dad's recliner expensive suit, making him look like a visiting dignitary. Sarah occupied the couch with her husband David, both wearing the satisfied expressions of people confident in their moral superiority. Marcus lounged in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, grinning like he'd solved the world's problems. Mom and Dad flanked the room's edges, looking concerned, but hopeful. "You look better," Sarah said as I entered. "The work's been good for you." "Hard work builds character," Marcus added. "You can see it in how he carries himself now." I stood in the center of the living room where I'd opened Christmas presents as a child, surrounded by people who'd raised me, and felt nothing but cold clarity. I wanted to thank you all. I began letting genuine emotion color my voice. These past few weeks have been the most educational experience of my life. We were worried about being too tough, Mom said softly. But Jake convinced us it was necessary. Jake was absolutely right, I replied. I learned things I never would have discovered any other way. See? Jake leaned forward, pleased. Sometimes love means making hard choices. Like letting family members sleep in cars during medical emergencies, I said. Or charging rent for basement rooms that need renovation. Now, Elmer. Dad started, we explained our reasoning. Oh, you did. Very thoroughly. You all did. I pulled out my phone. In fact, I recorded most of those explanations. The room's energy shifted as they registered my tone. I've got Jake explaining why disrupting his business schedule was more important than helping his collapsed brother. Sarah discussing my case with her book club like I was an interesting psychological specimen. Marcus bragging about getting cheap labor from his desperate cousin. Elmer. Sarah said carefully, recording private conversations without consent is illegal in this state. Actually, it's a one-party consent state. I checked. But that's not the most interesting thing I learned. I pulled out the charity collection flyers I'd printed from the church website. I learned that Jake's been telling clients about his generous family support landing new business from people impressed by his values. I learned that Sarah's book club thinks she deserves a community service award for her compassion. I learned that Marcus has been collecting $800 from St. Matthew's Church for supporting me financially. Marcus straightened up. How did you? And I learned that Mom and Dad received $1,500 from the Community Crisis Fund for their selfless assistance to their struggling son. The silence was deafening. So let me understand this correctly. I continued. While I was sleeping in my car and working for below minimum wage, you were all collecting money from community organizations for the generous support you were providing me. Support that consisted of offering me exploitative labor arrangements in exchange for basic human needs. That's not what happened, Jake said quickly. Really? Because I have documentation of everything. Church records fund applications, even recordings of Marcus bragging about how profitable my homelessness has been for everyone. I pulled the lottery ticket from my pocket, still folded and creased from weeks of carrying it. But here's the thing. I have some news that might interest you all. I unfolded the ticket slowly, letting them see the numbers. 3 weeks ago, the day before I called asking for help with my car, I bought this lottery ticket. The biggest jackpot in state history. $380 million. The room exploded. What? Sarah gasped. You're joking, Jake said, but his face had gone pale. I won $380 million, and I decided not to tell anyone right away. Instead, I thought I'd test my family. See what kind of people you really were when you thought I had nothing to offer you. Marcus had gone completely silent, staring at the ticket. The car repair, the eviction notice, the hospital visit, sleeping in my car, begging for help. All of it was a test. I wanted to see if blood really was thicker than water, if family really meant something when it wasn't convenient or profitable. Elmer. Mom whispered, you can't be serious. Dead serious, Mom. I've been sitting on more money than this entire family will see in 5 lifetimes, while you debated how much suffering I needed to build character. Jake stood up suddenly. This is insane. You put us through this whole charade. I put you through what exactly? Jake asking for $800 from someone who owns 4 rental properties, requesting a ride from the hospital from my own brother. If you had money, why didn't you just tell us? Because I wanted to see who you really were, and you showed me. Sarah was shaking her head. This is crazy. We were just trying to help you learn responsibility. By collecting charity money while offering me exploitative work arrangements, that's responsibility. We didn't know you had money, David said defensively. Exactly. When you thought I had nothing, you found ways to profit from my desperation. When you believed I was genuinely homeless and hungry, you calculated how much labor you could extract from my crisis. I pulled out my phone and played the recording of Marcus laughing about getting paid to let me work for him. The community gave you money because they believed you were generous family members, sacrificing to help someone in crisis. Instead, you were running a coordinated exploitation scheme. Dad finally spoke. Son, if you'd just told us you had money, then you would have treated me completely differently. Which proves my point. Your love, your help, your basic human compassion was conditional on what you thought I could provide you. That's not fair, Mom said, tears starting. What's not fair is discovering that my family sees my suffering as beneficial, even profitable. What's not fair is learning that you'd rather let me freeze in a car than interrupt your social schedules. Jake tried a different approach. Look, we can work this out. We didn't know the full situation. Oh, I think you knew exactly what the situation was. A desperate family member asking for basic help, and all of you calculating how to minimize your costs while maximizing your benefits. I stood up, putting the lottery ticket back in my pocket. The test is over. I learned everything I needed to know about who you are when you think no one's watching, and there's nothing in it for you. Marcus finally found his voice. So what happens now? I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Now you get to explain to St. Matthew's Church and the Community Crisis Fund where that money actually went. You get to explain to your clients and book clubs and social circles what your generous family support actually looked like. You can't do that, Sarah said frantically. I can, and I will. Because unlike you, I believe actions should have consequences. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Jake, your house-sitting offer is declined. Sarah, I won't be needing your couch. Marcus, consider this my resignation from the construction job. And Mom, Dad, the basement renovation project is permanently canceled. Elmer, wait, Dad called. We can discuss this like adults. I paused at the door, looking around the room one final time at people who'd raised me, taught me, and ultimately shown me exactly what their love was worth. We just did. The next morning, I walked into the offices of Peters Wellington and Associates, the best law firm in the city, and hired them to handle everything professionally. Within 48 hours, every organization my family had defrauded received detailed documentation of where their charity money had actually gone, along with cashier's checks, reimbursing double the amounts they'd collected. I didn't want anyone's money. I wanted the truth. The letter I sent with each reimbursement was simple. The Thompson family wishes to return the charitable contributions collected under false pretenses. They were never providing financial support to their family member in crisis. Documentation attached. The reactions were swift and predictable. Jake lost 3 major clients within a week. Word spread quickly through the real estate community about his family values marketing campaign being based on lies. His business partner suggested they might need to reassess their professional relationship. Sarah faced questions at the hospital from colleagues who'd contributed to the charity collection. Her nomination for the Community Service Award was quietly withdrawn. Her book club asked her to step down from leadership after several members said they felt manipulated. Marcus discovered that reputation matters in business when you're selling trust. 2 of his biggest contracts were canceled by clients who'd hired him specifically because they believed in his character. His church asked him to resign from the board of trustees. My parents faced the hardest consequences of all. Their retirement community was small and close-knit. Within days, everyone knew about the false charity applications and their treatment of their homeless son. The sympathy casserole stopped. The dinner invitations ended. They found themselves isolated among neighbors who'd once respected them. The phone calls started 3 days after the letters were delivered. Elmer, please. Jake's voice was desperate. I lost the Morrison account. That was $12 million in commissions. We need to talk. Now you need to talk. I made mistakes, okay? I was wrong about the tough love approach. But you're destroying my career over a few bad decisions. I'm revealing your character to people who have a right to know it. If that damages your career, maybe the problem isn't the revelation." Sarah called an hour later crying. "They're questioning my judgment at work. My own patients are asking for different nurses because they don't trust me anymore. How am I supposed to support my family? The same way you suggested I should. Hard work and personal responsibility." That's cruel, Elmer. Cruelty is watching your brother sleep in a car while you debate whether his suffering is educational enough. Marcus's call came that evening. "You want to ruin all of us over some misunderstanding, fine. But think about what you're really doing here. You're tearing apart a family over money." "I'm not tearing apart anything, Marcus. I'm just removing the pretense that we were ever a family in the first place." "Come on, man. We made mistakes, but this is extreme. You made a profit center out of my homelessness while telling everyone you were supporting me. That's not a mistake. That's a business model." My parents called both of them on the phone together. "Son." Dad's voice was broken. "We're sorry. We handled everything wrong. But please, this has to stop. We can't show our faces anywhere in town." "You're embarrassed by people knowing what you did?" "We're ashamed," Mom whispered. "We failed you as parents and now everyone knows." "The shame isn't in people knowing, Mom. The shame is in what you chose to do." "Can you forgive us?" I sat in my new penthouse apartment looking out over the city lights, considering the question. Forgiveness isn't the issue. The issue is trust. You showed me who you are when you thought it didn't matter, when you thought no one important was watching. "We can change," Dad said desperately. "Maybe. But I'll never know if it's real change or just performance for someone who can now afford to walk away." Over the following weeks, each family member attempted reconciliation with increasingly elaborate apologies and promises. Jake offered to give me a percentage of his business. Sarah suggested family therapy. Marcus proposed partnership opportunities. My parents offered to sign their house over to me. Every offer was calculated based on my wealth, which proved they still didn't understand the real problem. 3 months later, I did something that surprised them all. I established the Thompson Family Emergency Fund, administered by an independent foundation. Any family member facing genuine crisis could receive immediate assistance, housing, medical care, basic needs, with no strings attached and no conditions. But there was one requirement: they had to apply like anyone else with verification and documentation, and they couldn't know it was my money providing the help. I wanted to see how they treated charitable assistance when they were receiving it, instead of exploiting it. None of them ever applied. 6 months after the lottery revelation, I received a letter from my parents. They were moving to Arizona, they said, for a fresh start somewhere. People didn't know their story. Jake was selling his business and relocating to another state. Sarah had taken a position at a different hospital. Marcus was exploring opportunities in other cities. They were all running from the consequences of their choices, hoping geography would restore reputations they'd damaged through their own actions. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was grateful. The $380 million had bought me something more valuable than money can usually purchase: absolute clarity about the difference between love and transaction, between family and convenience, between character and performance. I learned that true wealth isn't about having enough money to help others. It's about being the kind of person who helps, regardless of what you can afford to give. I learned that family isn't about shared blood or history. It's about shared values, mutual respect, and genuine care for each other's well-being. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the biggest gift life can give you isn't what you gain, but what you learn to let go of. My family taught me that blood doesn't automatically create loyalty, respect, or love. Those have to be earned through actions, not inherited through DNA. The $380 million bought me something priceless: the truth about the people I'd been trying so hard to please. And that truth set me free to build a life surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide. Today, I run a foundation that helps families in genuine crisis. I've learned to recognize the difference between people who've lost their way and people who've chosen their path. I've surrounded myself with friends who celebrated my good fortune, instead of calculating how to profit from it. And every morning when I wake up in my beautiful home, I remember that the real lottery wasn't the money I won. It was learning who my family really was, before I wasted a lifetime trying to earn love that was never freely given in the first place. The greatest fortune of all was discovering that some relationships cost more than they're worth, regardless of how much you can afford to spend on them. Sometimes the people you need to let go of are the very people you thought you couldn't live without. And sometimes that's exactly when your real life begins. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever discovered something surprising about people close to you during a difficult time? How did it change your relationship with them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories help other people realize they're not alone in dealing with family challenges. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button so more people can find it. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about family relationships and the lessons we learn when life tests us in unexpected ways. And please share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to set boundaries with family members who don't treat you with respect. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that your worth isn't determined by how others choose to treat you, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from people who can't see your value. Take care of yourselves, and remember that you deserve relationships built on genuine care, not convenience or obligation.